I was a pizza delivery girl when I was young, and this night I was delivering to a house I had never been to before. I went up to the front door and nobody answered when I rang the bell. Nobody answered at all, and I returned to my car to take the pizza back and get my next delivery. At some point during my drive back, I glanced into my rearview mirror and saw a person sitting in my back seat. I swerved the car and hit another car that was parked. I stomped the brakes while screaming and got out of the car as quickly as I could. The person in the back seat started laughing at my fear, and I stopped a car to get help. The person in the back seat was very ill in the head, and they didn't try to hurt me when I was in the car. But when the police pulled them from my car, they had a small pocket knife clutched in their hand. I was in my 20s when I had the scariest dream of my life. I've had intense dreams and even nightmares, but nothing has topped this, and I hope nothing ever does. I was dreaming about going to my dentist, and in the dream, I was talking to a lady at the front counter, when suddenly, I turn my head to my right, and there's another woman sitting right next to me, looking me in the eyes. Then, with a very serious look on her face, she says to me, "There is somebody in your apartment. Wake up." I jolted awake and was sweating bullets. My heart was throbbing, and I slowly checked my apartment. Nobody was there. One year ago, I was sitting at my grandpa's bedside as he was dying. I've been very close to this man my entire life, and I'm in my 30s now. As he's laying there asleep, I'm on the phone when he suddenly turns to me and says, "Daniel, I need to tell you something." I tell him okay, and he proceeds to tell me that he brutally murdered his first wife and her son. I'm in shock, and I ask him how and why, and he responds that he got angry and that he used an old hammer from his garage. Hearing this completely blew my mind, because he was the kindest man I have ever known, or so I thought. He tells me they never found out it was him, and that he cleaned up the blood and got rid of all the evidence. I tried to act as normal as possible after hearing this, and I had to leave the room shortly after. I sat in the hospital hallway near his room and tried to think of what to do. I eventually went back into his room and asked him if anyone else knew about what he had done. He told me no, but he was ready to come clean, but that he didn't want to do it himself. He wanted me to tell everybody. I got upset and told him I couldn't, and that I wouldn't. He got very emotional after I said this and began to cry. I left his hospital room again and drove home. 3 days later, my father called me and told me that he had passed away. I still hadn't told anybody, not even my wife. Months later, I was helping my father and my uncle clean out some things in my grandpa's garage, and hanging up over his tool bench was a very old-looking hammer. It brought chills up my spine. I told my father and my uncle that day, and it took some convincing and arguing, but they eventually believed me. My father went to the authorities with the information. It's a very strange feeling to miss a person you loved so much in your life, but equally hate them for what they left you with. I miss my grandpa, but he was the biggest coward I have ever known. I took the hammer to my house, and I look at it often, wondering if this was the hammer he used to murder his first wife and stepson. A few years ago, my ex-husband and I were eating at the mall with my 2-year-old daughter. She was happily munching on a cookie and watching Yo Gabba Gabba on my phone. This old Japanese man, probably 70 years old, walked up to us and started commenting on how pretty she is. She has curly strawberry blonde hair and sea green eyes with super pale skin. He went on to say how she looks so healthy. I say thank you. Old people always love adorable kids, so I didn't freak out immediately. He then proceeds to stroke her cheek and run his hands through her hair and talks about how we should bring her to his office because he is a pediatrician and he would love to treat her. I pick her up from the high chair and hold her in my lap so he won't touch her again. My ex-husband tries to politely give cues for him to go away, but he doesn't take the hint. Then, while I'm holding her, he bends over and runs his hand over her leg and gives her this creepy smile and says, "It's okay, I'm a pediatrician." I scoot back, glaring as I say, "Don't touch my kid," and stand up to start putting her in her stroller. We leave and he follows us out to the car asking to play with her. A few weeks pass and I go back to the same mall and end up bumping into him again. This time, my ex-husband was at work. So I'm in Sephora and picking up some makeup and I have my back turned for a minute and I hear, "Mommy?" and turn to see the old man holding my daughter. I get her back from him and loudly say, "Get the hell away from my child," and go to the mall security to tell them. They couldn't find him. After that, we never went back to that mall. I used to work at a place which required to be manned 24 hours a day. The reason being is that I handled sensitive documents and files, and if somebody needed this information in the middle of the night, I would have to fetch it for them, or confirm that I have it. Security here is tight. There's bars on the windows, multiple locked doors to get to where I am. They would give me work to do during the night, but underestimated how quickly I could get it done. So like most nights, I finished my work in like 30 to 45 minutes and pulled out my phone and played games. I browsed Netflix and Reddit, since nobody else is in the building at night. So now it is getting to be the last third of my shift, when all of a sudden, I hear a door close. I look to the security camera and see someone walking down a hall towards my room. At first, I thought it was just somebody that came in ridiculously early, so I turn around in my chair and wait for them to walk through the door. But nobody does, and the hairs start to rise on my back. Now, this isn't a really big building, so I figure I'll find the guy wherever he is and start checking offices and storage rooms. But I came up empty-handed. However, I do see that a fire door had shut. I go to try to rewind the camera, but the digital recording is password protected, and I don't have the password. The whole thing freaked me out, the way the person was walking down the hallway, like a determined walk, right to where I was. So, I sit with my spine tingling for the last couple hours of my shift. Finally, people start coming in. My replacement shows up, and I tell her what I saw, and at this point, I figured I must have imagined the whole thing. I'm told to go home, and the manager and girl who replaced me would look over the camera. After getting home, I call my manager and ask what was on the camera. So they said that the video showed the fire door closing, but then the video froze for about an hour. The next thing it records is me reopening the door. I used to nanny full time. One night, the parents asked me to stay late, almost overnight, so they could go on a date. I put all the kids to bed and loaded up a movie the mom had suggested I watch. It was a horror movie called The Babadook. Part of the way through the movie, I paused it because I heard the youngest coming down the stairs. She comes up to me, looks me dead in the eyes, and says, "Do you want to die?" Without hesitation, I told her no, go back to bed. As soon as I hit play, the little boy in the movie, about the same age as the girl that just walked up to me, asks the mother, "Do you want to die?" I thought it was freaky, but I chalked it up to her maybe seeing the movie already with her family. When her parents got home, I told her mother about it. She told me she has never seen the movie, and apparently she just does this sometimes while sleepwalking. I woke up in the middle of the night because my cat was crying at my bedroom door. He did this often when he would empty his water bowl to let me know that he needed more. It wasn't a problem for me until this one night. I got out of bed, and right outside my door, my cat was waiting. I stood in the doorway for a second and waited for him to turn and start walking away ahead of me. He did, and as I walked out of the hallway, I turned the corner to the left, and in my peripheral vision to my right, I saw somebody standing by my back door. I was so tired and out of it, I didn't even realize that I had actually just seen somebody in my house until I was in the kitchen. You can't even imagine how scary it is to see something like that. In books and movies, it is scary. In real life, it is something else entirely. I stood in the kitchen trembling and trying to think of what to do. I didn't want them to know that I did see them when I walked by. My eyes started to fill with tears. My husband was in bed asleep, and to reach him, I'd have to walk by the back door again. I was sure if I did that, something bad would happen, but I didn't know what else to do. Somehow, I don't know how, I made a decision. I would turn the corner and pretend to not see them again. I counted to 5 and started walking. When I turned the corner, I ran into a man standing in front of my bedroom door. I screamed and fell backwards. The man started grabbing at me, and my husband came out of the room. He wrapped his arms around the man and threw him away from me. I swear my husband says he didn't hear anything, but I swear I heard the loud noise that sounded like an alarm right after he did that. Thankfully, my husband was able to overpower the man, and I ran and got my cell phone and called 911. The man was pinned to the ground the whole time and just kept saying, "I'll just leave, honey. I'll just leave." When the police finally arrived, I had the front door already open, and when they came inside, the crazy man started crying like a child, like uncontrollably. I have never really been the same since this happened. It was truly the stuff of nightmares. I had been delivering pizzas for about 3 years. I was 21 years old when this happened. I have no idea what night it was, but I remember it was late. We had an order placed for 1 small pizza. I drove out to this house that was located on a lonely, dark road, with not too many lights on it, and not too many houses. The house looked nice, but was pitch black inside. No lights on at all. This happened several times during this job, but it always made me feel a little uneasy. Why would you be ordering pizza and have 0 lights on when the person is supposed to deliver it? I walked up to the porch and knocked. It seemed like nobody was home, which made no sense, but I was hoping nobody would answer so I could just leave. I knocked again and got nothing. I didn't really care if these people got their pizza. I was getting creeped out standing on this dark porch, so I turned around to go back to my car. I stopped immediately when I noticed the guy standing in the middle of the walkway, holding some kind of object. I'm pretty sure it was a crowbar or something like that. I was about to say something, but I couldn't think of anything, and I quickly realized I was in danger. There would be no reason for this guy standing there blocking my path holding this thing, except to hurt me or steal the money I had or something. I put the pizza on the ledge next to the ashtray and jumped over the side of the porch wall and started running like a madman into the backyard. I heard the guy give chase, but I was in pretty good shape. I only weighed about 140 pounds, and I was pretty sure I could outrun this guy. I hopped the fence in the backyard that led into the neighbor's backyard, and then ran and hopped their fence to the left of me. After that, I hopped like 3 more fences before I ended up back onto some street. I started walking fast and out of breath over to the sidewalk. I pulled my phone out to call my boss. He thought I was joking at first, which really pissed me off. I told him to send somebody to get me right away. After hiding on the porch of another darkened house, a coworker eventually picked me up. I got in his car, and the whole thing felt surreal. I couldn't believe that any of this just happened. We drove back over to the house, and my car was still sitting there on the dark street, in front of this dark house. I told the guy who was driving I wasn't getting out to get it until we had police with us. We saw the guy sitting on the porch as we drove by, but he didn't have that object in his hands anymore. I saw him watch me as we drove by. We sped off, and I called the police. We met them there, and the guy was gone. The police knocked on the door a few times, and then eventually opened up the front door to reveal that the house was vacant, dark. There was nothing inside. This scared me so much. I got back in my car and went back to the pizza place. I only worked for this place a few more days before my family and my girlfriend convinced me it was time to get another job. Delivering pizza is dangerous work. A girl in my high school English class once told me a story. She was 4 years old at the time. She lived in a house backing onto a park with no fence around her backyard. She had a glass sliding door in her room that opened out to the park. It's the middle of the night, and she's asleep. She suddenly hears a banging at the door. Being a little kid, she hides under her blankets in fear. In the morning, there was a dead woman covered in blood outside the door. Blood was smeared down the glass. Apparently, she was attacked in the park, ran for help, and was trying to get someone in the house to help her. She ended up getting stabbed to death on the girl's back porch. This happened when I was 17. I was home alone, and I had gotten into the shower. I was washing my hair when I heard something in the bathroom. I still had shampoo in my hair, and I tried to open my eyes right away. The shampoo got in my eyes, and I was forced to close them. It sounded like somebody had opened the bathroom door, but I had locked it, so I wasn't sure. I frantically rinsed my hair while trying to open my eyes while doing it. As soon as I was able, I opened them completely. I could kind of see that the bathroom door was cracked open. A sudden rush of fear. I turned off the water and yelled out, "Mom?" hoping to God that she would respond. She didn't, and I started shaking. I climbed out of the shower and wrapped my towel around my body. I always locked the bathroom door. Always. I opened the door, and to my horror, I could see all the way down the hall that the front door was wide open. My bedroom was right next to the bathroom, and I remember I moved into it very quickly and closed and locked my door. I had clothes on my bed, and I quickly got dressed. I tried to think of who to call first when I heard a noise in my closet behind me. Petrified, I turned around and saw that my closet was closed. when I had always left it open. I didn't stick around to see who was in my closet. I ran out of the house and over to my friend's house, who lived a few doors down. Her dad answered the door, and I used their phone to call my mom, who then called the police. It was absolutely insane. 2 cops showed up at my house, but didn't find anyone. When they assured my mom and I that nobody was in the house, we went inside with them, and I saw that my closet was now open. My dad didn't live with us there, but he helped my mom buy a gun. We weren't allowed to get it right away, and we had to sleep in that house without one for a long time. It was so eerie, especially at night. Nothing happened again, but we didn't feel better or sleep better until finally she was able to pick up the gun.